Alright, so today is May 27th, and now it's been a while since Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 came out. And with that movie, I thought it'd be fun to make an MCU tier list, where I would rank all the movies from worst to best on a tier list. Now, I just want to clarify some things. Obviously, there are now so many movies that could be connected to the MCU. Now, the Spider-Verse movies are technically canon to the MCU. The Raimi movies, the Mark Webb movies for Spider-Man, they are also connected in some way. I'm just gonna stick with like the main Earth 1999 timeline that the Kevin Feige has produced with all of these movies. Also, and I need to make this clear, this is all my opinion. Nothing is objective. This all comes down to how I enjoy the movie. And trust me, there's going to be some hot takes. So, opening up the tier list now. All right, first up we got Iron Man, the one that started it all, the one that started this entire franchise, and it's going in S. Honestly, the thing with Iron Man is that if you look back on it, this is just a good superhero movie on its own. Like superhero movies at this point in time had like the basic trope. You got the hero who goes through some tragedy and then they become the superhero. This movie kind of like turns a spin on it. The main character is kind of a dick, not gonna lie, but it's like through like this event, that being him getting kidnapped by the Ten Rings, where he like realizes that he could be doing better, like he could actually make a difference. And I think like this is actually a very bare bones like movie, and I like the simplicity of it. And it's not trying to set up future movies. And even though they do have the post credit scene with Nick Fury, I still think like the simplicity of this movie is what makes it as good as it is. But now thinking about it, I actually might have to drop it back to A. I know I just said S, but the villain is kind of whack. Not gonna lie. Nah, I cannot say that. Oba, all right, I got this. Obadiah Stane. All right, there it is. He's fine. Like it was kind of obvious that he was gonna be like the big bad, like just the way they set him up. It was kind of obvious, but other than that, everything about this movie, it's just fun. Then we have the Incredible Hulk, and this is a weird one because realistically, it's not a good movie. Like it is so by the bones superhero movie that you could believe it came out like aside Daredevil and Catwoman. Like the level of quality is on that. So if it were up to me, I would have just put it in D. But I'm gonna put it in C, and that's mainly for one main reason, and that's how they portray Hulk. Hulk in this movie, he's fucking badass. I love this Hulk. I miss this Hulk because after Endgame, I kind of guess we all took for granted like the angry Hulk that we're all used to. But now that we have Smart Hulk, and not gonna lie, he's kind of underwhelming. I just miss this type of Hulk. Also, Bruce Banner isn't Mark Ruffalo in this movie. I'm pretty sure it's I forgot the guy's name. This guy, he's fine as Bruce Banner. He kind of just feels like a regular guy, honestly. Like I feel like when we get to Avengers, the Mark Ruffalo Bruce Banner, he it feels like they actually put in an effort to make him a character. In this movie, his main motivation, yeah. So this movie's fine, honestly. Like Abomination, he's pretty cool, not gonna lie. And the final fight, even though it's just like two monsters just bashing it out, it's still fun. All right, then we got Thor. Eh, yeah, I think this one's also C tier, honestly. All right, so good things. I like Loki in this movie. I like how he's not like the god of mischief just yet. Like if he was like in future movies, they play on the comedy of Loki, but they also make it whether or not we could trust him. I like how this movie kind of develops that. Like he's not really a bad guy in this movie. If anything, he's like the voice of reason at the very beginning. But then once he learns about like his ancestors and how Odin kind of like adopted him, he turns into like the Loki we're all used to nowadays. But Chris Hemsworth himself, he not gonna lie, he kind of is okay in this movie. Like he plays the role fine, just like Thor is just a selfish brat. And honestly, I'm not convinced that he was worthy because like especially in future movies, knowing that how he becomes like such a goofball, making that like worthy moment where he lifts the hammer finally is kind of weird. I don't know. I will say my favorite scene though is when he sees the hammer for the first time and he's so confident that he's able to lift it, but then we get the realization that he's not worthy just yet. I like that realization, and I think like the whole scenery in that scene was pretty good. Jane Foster sucks. I'm sorry, I had to say it. But Natalie Portman and Chris Hemsworth, no chemistry whatsoever. But other than that, this movie's fine. All right, Iron Man 2. The only thing people remember this movie is for having Black Widow in it, not gonna lie. Uh, that's really all I remember. It's the one that had Black Widow, and Whiplash has a cool design. I'll give it that. But honestly, I don't remember anything about this movie. They had a War Machine for the first time. Now it's Don Cheadle instead of that other guy. It's fine. Man, Phase 1 is not as good as I remember. But in terms of whether it's better than Incredible Hulk and Thor, I will say I had a lot more fun with Hulk, but I will say it's better on its own with Thor over Thor. So I'm gonna put it like right in the middle. Then we have I was ready for this one. Captain America: The First Avenger. S tier. I'm sorry, this is probably the most underrated MCU movie that we'll get to. But I love this movie. I think I like to see this movie as like one of the underdog stories where you have like Steve Rogers, who his only motivation is that he wants to do good, and then you get the scientist guy who sees the determination through Steve, and even though it's kind of like, oh, you need to be good because if you get strong, you'll go off those emotions. Even though that's kind of dumb, but it's honestly fun. I just love the character of Steve Rogers, and I think this is actually the first MCU movie where I like the romance. Yeah, I didn't dig Tony and Pepper, Bruce and that random lady, Thor and Natalie. This is the one where I actually like the couple. I like how even though Steve is like the big buff guy, he still doesn't know how to talk to Peggy or like how to talk to women in general. But honestly, I just find that kind of wholesome. And I just liked like the whole 40s, 50s aesthetic that the movie's going for, obviously because it's taking place in World War II. Sebastian Stan's cool as Bucky, even though he barely got any screen time. But other than that, like I said, like it's the simplicity of this movie that works well. It's kind of on the same deal with Iron Man, except the difference with this is that it has a good villain, so it automatically goes in S. So that's First Avenger. Avengers, the one that made a billion in the box office, the one that started like the whole Avengers. It's I'm gonna go with A because I don't want to like get people mad. All right, so here's the thing with Avengers. Joss Whedon is weird. So if you don't know, mainly Josh Whedon, the director for this movie, is now kind of associated with the whole Justice League thing, where like Zack Snyder had to step down from the project, and we got the Justice League, and no one liked that. But when you really think about it, as terms as aesthetics and like writing goes, this movie is not that much different from 2017 Justice League. I don't know. It's weird. Like I put it in A because obviously I like the movie a lot. I like the dynamic between like Iron Man and Captain America where they have like different viewpoints. Obviously, it is in the Civil War that we're about to get, but this movie's just colorful. Like it feels like an actual comic book, and I feel like I like the presentation with this movie. It's like all colorful and it isn't all grayed out as we'll see in future movies. But yeah, I like all the characters. Man, I did not come prepared. I don't really have that much to say about this. Uh, I like Avengers. Let's just leave it at that. God, this tier list sucks, but it's fine. All right, Iron Man 3. It's fine, but I actually like it more than all of these three, so I'm gonna put in B just to fill up space. Uh, really, the only thing I imagine with this movie is Ready Aim Fire by Imagine Dragons. That's the only thing I associate this movie with. I will say, I really like the dynamic between Iron Man and that one kid. I forgot his name, but I like how it kind of plays on the similarities between the two, like with both their dads leaving and everything. It's an unusual sight to see. Like you have like the billionaire playboy with this kid with no father, and Tony absolutely shows no remorse to the kid. Honestly, this is just a fun movie. I will say the Mandarin. We all know the deal with the Mandarin. He was hyped up in the trailers to be this big bad. I wasn't there because I didn't watch this movie in theater, so the letdown didn't really get to me. I will say was I think this was the first of the MCU starting to like ruin us with the jokes because the Mandarin was looked so cool in like the trailers and everything. And the Mandarin, when it turns out to be just Trevor, the actor, kind of underwhelming. But the other guy, the actual Mandarin, he's fine, I guess. The only reason it's in B is because I could see myself watching this over all these other movies. Thor: The Dark World. All right, this is widely known as the worst MCU movie. I'm gonna put it in D, but not E yet. Here's the thing: Dark World, it's a bad movie, but mostly because it's bland. It does nothing to piss me off. Thor in this movie is kind of bland. The villain, I forgot his name. That just shows how much bland this movie is. The visuals are bland, the action's bland. If there's one word to describe the movie, bland. But it actually does nothing to piss me off. Like, there's not something that absolutely infuriates me with this movie, but there's not really much to go back to. And I'd rather watch all the movies in C tier than Dark World. So yeah, that's kind of how Dark World's going to stay. Guardians of the Galaxy, easy S tier, greatest MCU movie ever made. James Gunn, you're my lord and savior. Thank you. All right, but for real, I love Guardians, and we all love James Gunn. We all know why. Just this isn't a movie, an MCU movie that can be compared with others. Like when people say, "Oh, these movies are the same," you're really going to tell me Dark World and Guardians of the Galaxy had the same premise? Like really? The thing with Guardians, it's kind of the same reason why I love First Avenger so much, and that's pretty much the underdog story. All these characters are losers. They're outcast, and just seeing them band together and like starting this family is probably one of the most wholesome things in the entire like any superhero movie ever. And all these characters are likable. Like we all love Chris Pratt, Star Lord, and let's be real, Groot is the MVP in this movie. That Sacrifice Man, the We Are Groot, amazing. Rocket Raccoon Man, he is such a snarky word, but Rocket Raccoon is such a smartass in this movie. But knowing where this character is heading, and already know what movie I'm talking about, just goes going back to this movie like 10 times better because you know why this character has the comments he has. Like all of these comments come from a place of him just trying to have a place, trying to have a character. And I just love that so much. James Gunn, I trust you with my life for the Superman movie you're going to make. I trust you. And with the whole DC universe. Good luck with that. Okay, this is when the hot takes really start to come in. Winter Soldier. It's fine. Like, I will say this movie's kind of overrated. Wait, hold up. I need to fix that. It is better than Iron Man 3. I'll give that. But if... Alright, so this is the first Russo brothers films. Joe and Anthony Russo, the directors of this movie, will soon be the ones to direct Infinity War and Endgame. And I believe they are television directors because the way this movie is shot is just so gray. But that's a good thing in this movie. I will give it credit for this movie. I like how it deals with Captain America trying to like... I like how in this movie, Captain America is just trying to fit into this new modern world. I like how he's trying to like take his own beliefs, but also adapt to this new environment that he's not used to. But as I will say, this movie's kind of overrated for two main reasons. One, Winter Soldier is barely in this movie. And when he is in this movie, in the first half, we don't even know it's Bucky. And that's something that's weird because I believe in the trailers, it's already said that I don't know. I'm not going to cut that out. I don't want to say anything that I don't know. And we don't even find out that Bucky's Winter Soldier until like the halfway point. So all the emotional depth. And the second thing that I don't really like in this movie is Black Widow. I'm sorry, I didn't like Black Widow in this movie. She's fine. She like has some cool action scenes, but she kind of felt like bland. God, I said that move. God, I have to stop saying that word. She just felt like the girl power just to have girl power in the movie. Like, yeah, she does a lot of cool shit. And actually, no, she's not the most disappointing character. I take that back. Nick Fury is. He is so badass in this movie. So cool. And that one scene where he removes the eye patch and he's like, I forgot what line he said, but I remember it being badass. All these moments are kind of ruined because of this movie, and we'll get to that. Other than that, this movie it's cool. Like that's the best way I could say it. It's cool. All right, Ant-Man. This is a weird one. I believe there was supposed to be a different director, and this movie was supposed to come out a long time ago, but it's B. I feel I kind of like the Ant-Man movies for how grounded they are. Like they know not to take themselves seriously. This is more like a heist movie, if anything. Paul Rudd is like super like entertaining as Ant-Man. Like he's not like a superhero who cracks jokes all the time and is just trying to be funny. He is like that actually, but like he has like that grounded nature. I like his relationship with Cassie and soon to be Wasp. Obviously Darren the Yellow Jacket, he's kind of bland. But I just like the vibe of this movie. This is like just a chill movie. And we all love Luis. And for Luis alone, I will say it's better than Iron Man 3. So, yeah, we all love Luis. Age of Ultron. Now, I feel like people are being a little too harsh on this movie just because of the expectations we had. There is one thing that I don't like about this movie, and I'll get to that. But as for the tier list, I will say it's better than Iron Man 3, but I watch Ant-Man over it. The thing that bugs me about this movie is that this is the last Avengers movie until they split up. So this is the last time we're going to see the Avengers as a team. And they give us a fight scene between Captain America and Iron Man. I kind of wish that was saved for Civil War because this is the last time we're going to see the Avengers as a team and actually work together and just hanging out. And having this forced drama put in kind of just throws me out of the mood because we already know this is the last time we're gonna see each other as this. But I will say though, it's super satisfying to like see them team up, make amends, and then we get the fight with Ultron. Speaking of Ultron, I actually really like Ultron. I don't get why people say he's basically Iron Man as a robot, because no, he's not. Obviously, like the idea of Ultron's kind of basic. It's like the AI that goes crazy, and then things like he needs to save the world and all that, but it's really just him destroying it. That's what I think of when I think of a comic book villain. So honestly, the impact of that simple villain, I don't mind it. Like it's a simple villain, but it does its job as being a threat to the Avengers. Doctor Strange, I'm gonna be real with you guys. Don't remember shit about this movie. C tier. Yeah, I know I'm kind of breezing through these movies, but honestly, when people say the MCU is kind of like bare bones, they're kind of right. But when hit, they hit. And as we'll see later. Civil War, S or A? Oof. I'm gonna go with A and below Iron Man because I can see myself going to Iron Man. All right, this is where the Russo brothers style kind of began to wear off. So the Russos made Winter Soldiers all gray and like bland, and that works for the grounded nature of this movie. But when they're directing an Avengers movie, it kind of feels kind of like a television show, and that kind of throws me out of the mood. Like with the Avengers, like it was all bright and colorful. Like it felt like the lighting had purpose to show these comic book elements. But for this, it kind of felt like the Russos just came to deliver and did their own style because that's what they're used to. That being said, the only reason it's above Avengers is because I actually like the writing of this movie. As far as like the OG Avengers go, they all stay in character. And honestly, I kind of like this movie because like this is the first time where you split a team, like where you split a team, and the internet could actually side with both of them. Like you both get where people are coming from. Like Iron Man, he just want to stick to the system, let like do what needs to be necessary after the impact of that building collapse, and now he knows how sticking to the system will keep everyone safe. But at the same time, you also agree with Cap. He believes that they should be able to do have their own rights, and obviously this is like past tense to like the American way, the freedom of speech, and all that. But honestly, just coming back from Civil War and finding out that Shield was Hydra, it makes sense that he would have these motivations. Like it makes sense that he kind of has trust issues now. But I will say there's one character that I believe was at their peak in this movie. It's Tom Holland Spider-Man. I love Tom Holland Spider-Man in this movie. The first scene with him just screams potential. he has the nerdy instincts of Tobey Maguire, but he also has that spunk and like that quips like Andrew Garfield. Even though the suit was kind of dealt a bad hand, especially with how good that real life suit looks, I still think Tom Holland nailed it here. And I think that's, besides a movie that we're going to get to, this is his best characterization of Spider-Man. Volume 2. Now with how much I love the first Guardians movie, you would think that this movie would be just as good. It's still good. I will give it that. I like the. Here's the thing: the main character who like steals the show, even though Baby Groot is amazing in this movie, I still think Rocket is still the best, but so is Yondu. Because in a way, they kind of like going off of what I said in the first movie. Rock, going off of what I said with the first movie, Rocket is still that insecure guy who makes these smartass comments to make him feel better about himself. Yondu calls him out for this. He's like, I know who you are because you're me. Also, like, I actually like, what's his name? The Kurt Russell villain. I know it's Peter's dad. Ego, that's his name. Uh, I like that villain a lot, but now that there's a personal connection, I will say this movie has a better villain than the first Guardians movie. I like how now there's like a personal connection between our heroes and their antagonists. But the reason why this is below Guardians is kind of because James Gunn maybe overdid it too much with the humor. I feel like the humor in this movie was kind of vulgar, kind of like threw me out of the mood, not gonna lie. Like, there's still some good laughs, obviously, but I feel like they went a little bit over the top with this one. Whereas the first Guardians movie kind of had like that balance between comedy, heart, and action. But this is still a good movie. All right, Homecoming. Now, I could easily say this is a good movie, but not a good Spider-Man movie, and then we could call it a day. But that's pretty much what I think. Just B tier's good. Uh, Michael Keaton carried this movie. Like, even though like the whole deal with him, even though the whole deal with him having beef with Stark is kind of dumb, I'll allow it for this movie, especially since especially since that trope has been reestablished over and over again in these movies. I still think I'll give it a pass, mostly because he's more blaming the entire system. And how Spider-Man, being the friendly neighborhood guy he is, still wants to take him down because he knows that like selling weapons is bad, even though anyone could figure that out. I feel like the thing that's bringing this down is the whole connection with the MCU. Like, just looking at the poster, you have Iron Man, you have two pictures of Iron Man covering up this entire picture, and I feel like if this movie just stuck with the Spider-Man stories that we're used to, like about choices, responsibility, and like choosing like the way you want to do things, like Spider-Man 2, even the Amazing Spider-Man 2 did, with the consequences and how Spider-Man affects Peter's life, I feel like this movie kind of let Peter off kind of easy. That's just me. Also, Liz, don't remember her. Like, the fact that they have MJ in the poster says it all. Like, I don't even think the movie cared that much about Liz. It's kind of just like that your first crush thing. And then in Far From Home we'll get MJ. I kind of, Liz is fine. All right, Thor Ragnarok. When the Thor movies actually started getting good, uh, I will say I like Taika Waititi's like aesthetic. Like, I like the way the planet is like shaped. I like the props and everything. The humor kind of felt over the top again, but I had fun with this movie. So I'll put it in B. Now I got Black Panther, aka the only MCU movie to be nominated at the Oscars. So that's pretty cool. And even though I think the Best Picture nomination was a little overhyped, I will say this is definitely better than most of the MCU movies. All right, let's get the obvious out of the way first because I want to be nice about this movie. Visual effects suck, like flat out suck. Like that last final fight between Killmonger and Black Panther looks like something that would come out of a PS3 game. And with like a multi-billion company like Disney to like have this and kind of bad. But everything else is amazing. Chadwick Boseman as T'Challa, amazing character. Like, I like how he sticks with his beliefs with his father because that's what he's been told his entire life. But then once he realizes the Killmonger's past, he realizes that, yeah, even though Killmonger is is doing something bad with the weapons and everything, he kind of has a point, and there's other ways that Wakanda could provide its resources while also keeping Wakanda safe. And I kind of like how they play off Killmonger because, in a way, he's kind of right. Like, Wakanda has all these resources that will help millions around the world. And just the way he goes about it, obviously, makes him a villain. And I think Michael B. Jordan did good at that with balancing the character. Like, yeah, he's right, but at the same time, yeah, he's a bad guy. He has to be stopped. So I really like this movie, and just Wakanda in general is just like a beautiful set piece. I don't know if most of it's CGI, but still. All right, Infinity War. Okay, here we go. Infinity War is really good. Now, a lot of people say nowadays that this movie hasn't really aged well because it feels like every scene is just to get the audience to applause, but I feel like it's earned in this movie. Like, look at all of these movies we went through and just having like that one movie with everyone in it. It's the combination of everything that's happened so far, and I feel like having everyone team up to fight Thanos just feels so rewarding. Speaking of Thanos, one of the best, not just comic book villains, but antagonists in all of pop culture. Like it stands there with Heath Ledger Joker and Darth Vader. Like that's how good he is. And I really like Thor in this movie. I think Thor is at his prime in this movie. They balance the serious nature from the 2011 Thor while also having the comedy Thor that we have in Ragnarok. And both of these are from the comics. Like Thor had his goofy moments in the comics while also being serious. And I think they like perfectly balance that in this movie. But yeah, I really like this movie, and I think everything that built up to this deserves all the fan service moments. And obviously, we all know that ending broke everyone in the theaters. I actually was there for this movie, and I'm so glad I was. Like that theater experience was just so amazing. Like those are like one of those moments you'll never forget. And it doesn't stop there because we already know what we're getting into. But until then, we got Ant-Man and the Wasp. Honestly, I felt like the only reason this movie existed was for one, just to obviously be a sequel to Ant-Man, but it was also a break after the gut-wrenching ending from Infinity War. This movie's fine. Like, I had fun. Like, it felt like more on the kiddish side, which is pretty much what we got. I will say the first Ant-Man was better, so I'll give it, nope, not there. Right below the first Ant-Man. So, yeah, I like this movie. All right, this movie. This movie is not E. It's not E. It's F. I hate this movie. This is the one movie that I absolutely despise. Like, the difference with this and Dark World is that Dark World is bad, but it's bland. Like, there's nothing that pisses me off about it. This movie, on the other hand, I absolutely hate. And just to get this out of the way, all the Brie Larson controversy doesn't have anything to do with it. I barely know anything about Brie Larson and how she is like as a person, but I don't care because I hate the character of her. Her as an actor, she's fine, I guess, but the character has little to no emotion, no motivation whatsoever. And Nick Fury in this movie, and he started off strong, but then once you get to that scene where the cat scratches his eye, makes his entire character through all of these movies kind of went to waste, especially Winter Soldier. This movie just did so much wrong. The visuals are bland, the villain was bland. I hate this movie. Like, with a passion. Worst MCU movie by a long shot. And then they follow up with an absolute banger that is Endgame that definitely deserves S. Now, the debate with Infinity War versus Endgame is still a common thing. I think I prefer this over Endgame, and that's mainly due to the Infinity War being the fast roller coaster ride, where like everything that you waited for is finally here. And then once you get that ending, I like the time we get to spend with the OG Avengers at the very beginning. Like there isn't that much action in the beginning. It's just how these characters were affected by the snap. And I kind of like it when superheroes do that. Like, I didn't get that. Could you try again? That scared me. All right. I kind of like when superhero movies do that because it kind of humanizes the characters. You realize that these are actual people. So yeah, with those reasons, I think Endgame is superior. And obviously, the final act is like the final act. Like everything, all the fan service that's in this final act is just like so well earned. Like everything like that has lead up to this like pays off. I know I said this with Infinity War, but in Endgame is way more prevalent because like it's the Endgame. Like that's the name of the movie. This is where everything's gonna happen. And with Iron Man dying, I feel like that even though like that's obviously sad, I still think it's like the right way to go because like Tony's character has pretty much come full circle. He went from being an arrogant guy to a leader to a teacher to a father, and then it completes his character with like him. He's Iron Man, and then the snap happens. All right, Far From Home. Oh boy, Far From Home. I need to know what crack was I on when I made my Spider-Man movie ranking. One, I did not speak in that video. Two, I put Far From Home at number 2. I'm sorry, guys, but this is my least favorite Spider-Man movie. Keep in mind, I said least favorite, not the worst. It's my least favorite, like it's at the bottom, like dead at the bottom, but it's not that bad. I'm gonna give it C tier. No, 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 not you. Not you. You stay. All right, there you are. I'm gonna give it C tier, but right at top of C tier. For starters, it feels like the to start off with, I feel like Marvel kind of accepted the bland gray visuals. But with a Spider-Man movie, that's like the worst possible thing you could do. Spider-Man, even though he's a grounded character, he's not dark. He's not supposed to have like this gray atmosphere. He's in New York. He swings upon buildings. Mysterio's, not gonna lie, kind of overrated. I like Jake Gyllenhaal as an actor. Just, this is another time where the villain is this is another time where the villain has beef with Tony Stark. But honestly, this movie, I didn't hate it. Obviously, I gave Hulk a bunch of like praises. That's the same thing with Far From Home. On like a story point, it's not very good, but I still had some fun with it. Black Widow. This movie should have came out before, like a long time ago. Because now the impact, like the suspense is there. We know she's gonna die, and really the only reason people like this movie is Yelena. And for that alone, it's not going in F. But it is going in E because, not gonna lie, everything about this movie kind of sucks. The gray bland visuals are still there. The gray bland visuals are still there. The villain Taskmaster was completely ruined. And overall, this movie's kind of dumb. I was bored. That's the thing. Dark World, I would still say is over it just for not offending me. Well, this movie didn't offend me. This one did, but this one didn't. This movie I had problems with. Hence why it's not in D tier. The reason why it's not in F tier, like I said before, is only because of Yelena. We all like Yelena. Shang-Chi. This is a funny one, because I went to go see this movie with my dad in theaters, and we both walked out of it, like, saying, yeah, that was a good movie. That was a really good movie. But the more I think on it, the more, like, I feel like this movie is trying to say something, trying to be emotional, trying to, like, have these new themes, but in the back, you still have the basic MCU stuff. Like, you have, like, I feel like the one scene that pisses me off the most is on the airplane where where Shang-Chi is telling Aquafina, I forgot her name, about his backstory, his relationship with his father, and this stuff really hits. Like, you feel for him, and then you have the MCU do what they do best and make a joke. And that completely threw out the mood. Like, I hated that scene. But I like the villain, I like the hero, I like the sister. Aquafina, not gonna lie, kind of, I never liked Aquafina in any of her movies. I'm sure she's a great person in real life, but honestly, kind of find her a little annoying, but it's fine. Like, she plays her character well, I'll give her that. I feel like this movie's trying to be something, but then it has to remind us, hey, this is the MCU, time for joke. But yeah, so I'm gonna give Shang-Chi low B, like a very low B. All right, Eternal. I remember walking out of this movie theater, and I hated it. But after thinking about it some more, I will say this movie's kind of bad, but I appreciate the attempts that it was doing. I'm pretty sure like the director of this movie was like award winning or something. I don't know who the person is, but I appreciate the attempts that it was going for. So I'm gonna put it. Where am I gonna put it? All right, Doctor Strange, don't remember it. Thor, dumb fun. Iron Man, dumb fun. Dumb fun. I'm gonna put it right below Far From Home because I appreciate the attempts it was trying to do. The characters I like, I just wish they were used more. But that being said, I'm perfectly fine with this movie. Like, I don't hate it. I will say though, the one thing that I kind of found funny was that Angelina Jolie and Salma Hayek were advertised all over this place for this movie, just for one of them to be dead and for one of them to barely have any lines. I just found that funny. I don't find that annoying because honestly, don't really care about those actors. I'm sure they're great, but they didn't really amount much to the movie. So yeah. No Way Home, No Way Home, No Way Home. We all loved this movie when it first came out, but then something clicked with everyone, and I guess we don't like it anymore. Me, that being said, I made half of a review, and then I just stopped because I didn't want to finish it. This movie is S tier, but the lowest possible S tier you can get. Like the lowest S tier you can get, because the MCU stuff that has been plaguing them for a while now is still there. Bland visuals, the jokes sometimes just don't fit. Like I said, like having an emotion in the scene, but then joke ruins it. That heart to heart scene with Andrew Garfield and Electro was starting off great, but then the joke happens. Yeah, I didn't. Not gonna lie, kind of threw me off. But that being said, this is Tom Holland's redemption arc. The thing that bothered me the most about Homecoming and Far From Home is the lack of consequence. Peter does the main thing about Spider-Man is that he does everything right, but his life never turns out right for him. Thus, the responsibility of being Spider-Man comes in. Tom Holland never really had that until now. Doctor Strange wants to kill the villains, but Spider-Man wants to save them. That is the most Spider-Man thing you could possibly choose to do in a movie. That makes perfectly sense and fits for his character. But you know what happens when he does the right thing? Aunt May dies. That's the perfect way to summarize Spider-Man's character. He does everything right, yet everything goes wrong for him. And even the ending of this movie, he does the right thing. He cures the villains, but then he has to make everyone he knows forget him. And then that leaves off the movie as like a sad ending, but like a new beginning, like a new traditional Spider-Man movie. And I absolutely love the movie for that. Also, like I said, the thing about the fan service things with Endgame and Infinity War is that they feel earned. All these movies build up to this moment. Same thing goes with No Way Home. You got the Raimi movies, the Mark Webb movies. Everything like works for this movie because you know what these characters have gone through. I could already say how like Andrew Garfield was like one of the best things about this movie, but that's already been talked about. But you already know the impact that his past movies has left, especially when he saves MJ. You could tell Andrew Garfield's putting his heart and soul into this movie, and the character still remains true to the Mark Webb movies. Same with Toby, but less prevalent because, not gonna lie, he didn't really do much. But everything about this movie just feels earned, and especially like Tom Holland's redemption. So for that, I give it S tier. Speaking of Raimi movies, Multiverse of Madness. Everything I said about Shang-Chi applies for this movie. I love the horror element in this movie. Like, there are scenes that are genuinely disturbing and like jump scares that actually get you. But it's way more obvious than Shang-Chi because Sam Raimi has a style. He has like a passion. This movie got rid of the gray bland visuals. It actually pops. It actually like has something. And I feel like this movie's kind of underrated. Like, were you guys really expecting to have like a multiverse of cameos like Deadpool, Tobey Maguire? Like, I feel like the audience was expecting so much for this movie that they didn't appreciate what we actually got. So for that, I don't really have much to say about this movie. It's fun. It's definitely the Sam Raimi movie. So I think it's B tier. I'm gonna put it over Ragnarok because Raimi's vision was kind of way over Taika's because it feels like a Sam Raimi movie, whereas Taika had has his vision, definitely his aesthetic, but at the end of the day, it's true an MCU movie. Thor: Love and Thunder. Thor: Love and Thunder. There's this one thing that my brother said when he watched this movie that kind of made me think of this movie as a whole other way. This movie reminds him of We Can Be Heroes with Shark Boy and Lava Girl. And that kind of says it all about this movie. This movie, at the end of the day, is a joke. Everything about Ragnarok is still technically there. The comedy's there, the aesthetic, the way Taika presents his movies is there, but the MCU style is so much there that it's bad. Like every scene feels like it's getting you to laugh to the point where like, hey, this is a movie, the characters need to develop, do something, not just make us laugh, to the point where this is a bad movie. So I have problems with it. So this movie bores me, this movie I have problems with, so I'm gonna put it in E tier. The only reason it's above Black Widow is because Taika. Actually, no, I take it back. This is D tier, but like above Dark World, because there's one movie. I mean, not one movie. One character that I love in this movie, and that's Gore the God Butcher, played by Christian Bale. I just wish he was in a different movie. Like, let's be real. Does anyone remember the villain in Eternals? Exactly. And you can't say Icarus, he was not the villain. But Gore would have worked so much better in Eternals as long as they gave him a motivation to hate the Eternals, like in the way he hates the gods. I feel like he would have fit way more in this movie. But that's just me. Wakanda Forever. This movie is the highest A tier you could get. On paper, this movie does everything right. It plays a great tribute to Chadwick Boseman, obviously. It carries on these characters. It tones down on the jokes, surprisingly. And it gives Ryan Coogler his style. Like the Creed movies, the first Black Panther, he obviously has a style that's put into this movie, and it's front and center, and I love that. The characters in these movies all feel like connected to each other, and I feel like that's what carries these Black Panther movies. Like, just the characters are so likable. Namor, not as good as Killmonger, but he still serves as a threat to the new Black Panther. And actually, now thinking about it, I will say, I think I'm gonna drop this right behind the first Black Panther movie, because these movies I could see myself like raving about. Well, this movie is like a really good movie, but I don't really see myself going back to that movie. So that's there. Quantumania, the first Phase 5 movie that came out this year, Kang carried. And for Kang alone, is the lowest B tier you could possibly get. The characters kind of bland, not gonna lie. Paul Rudd is still good as Ant-Man, but Wasp is pretty much sidelined in this entire movie. Same with Hank Pym, and Janet is the most annoying character in this movie, because we have had multiple occasions where she could just tell us what's wrong, but she's like, "There's no time. We have to get to this place so that way the movie could go on." But then she's like, "There's no time. We need to move so that way the movie could go on, and I can explain this later." It got so annoying. Where Cassie's explaining the machine, she could just say, "You can't do that because the Kang is a thing, and then he'll kill every timeline." But that leads to the one good thing about this movie, Jonathan Majors as Kang. I feel like everyone can agree that he carried this movie. Like, there's like just a presence that he has that leaves an impact on you. Like, this guy's a threat. No redeemable qualities, just a pure bad guy. They kind of overhyped it, but I feel like they're just saying that just because of the lack of like good villains from the last two Ant-Man movies. But I still think King is a good villain. So for that, Quantumania, I still think it's a little overhated, but I know it's not that good. For that, it's like, so for that, it stays in the lowest B. Volume 3, Volume 3, Volume 3, Volume 3. I love James Gunn. James Gunn gave us some of the best superhero movies of all time. I know it's S tier, but the real question is, where? It's recency bias is definitely a thing right now. So I'm gonna say the first one's better for now, because my favorite character, as I said multiple times in the entire MCU, is Rocket. And everything that was hinted at in the first two movies about his insecurities is basically front and center in this movie. And I love it. It gives him like pretty much his whole character arc. Like, besides Tony Stark, I feel like Rocket had the most consistent arc in all of his movies. In the first movie, he was just like the smartest asshole, but he was pretty much comic relief. The second movie touches on that with Yondu, and he calls him out for it. And then the third movie comes full center of him accepting that and accepts his family that he has. And I feel like the High Evolutionary definitely played a part in this, because he just represents pure evil. Like, there's no redeeming qualities with him. And James Gunn has this thing where he takes characters that no one knows about. Like, but let's be real, who heard of Peacemaker, Polka Dot Man, Gamora, Drax the Destroyer, and Rocket Raccoon before these movies came out? Like, who? James Gunn makes like the best superhero movies because he takes characters that no one really knows about and turns them into household names. And even the side characters are good. We got Cosmo the dog. Teebs is the best character in the entire MCU. We stand for Teebs. All jokes aside though, I really like Rocket's cage friends. And their deaths were one of the most shocking, well, not shocking, we all knew like they were gonna die, but like one of the most impacting moments in the entire Because now everything became clear about Rocket's character. We know why he he's hurting so much, why he doesn't want to trust anyone, why he pushes everyone aside, because he doesn't want to go through losing family like he did just there in the cage. And I feel like James Gunn knows why he loves these characters, why they're flawed individuals that we still learn to love. And for that, this is one of the best MCU movies in a long time. So yeah, there's my MCU tier list. Obviously, I have some disagreements, like especially of how low I put Winter Soldier and how high I put First Avenger. But honestly, I'm happy with this tier list. Hopefully, I don't look back and just hate everything about it. But here it is. Here are my thoughts. And thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what's your favorite MCU movies. And see you guys later. See ya.